Narcissistic element. All right. My name is James Weinberg, and these are my friends and colleagues from the University of Iowa. It's John Akrazadlu, Pam Reese, and Wayne Kintz. And the project that we're presenting is called the Remote Observation Project, and we're gonna start sort of at the end, so you can see the end result of all the ingredients that we're gonna kind of back into. And we're gonna start with a little bit of video of the end product. Okay, so what you've just been seeing there is an application called Adobe Connect, which is a conferencing application that we use at the university to provide distance education classes. What we decided to do is in the teaching and learning program, we have pre-service teachers who have field placements throughout the state, and I'm going to have other folks on the team talk a little bit more about the goals and objectives, but basically we outfitted the student teachers with laptops, webcams, and tripods, and taught them how to use Adobe Connect. And in their field placements, they transmit live recorded video sessions of their teaching while faculty supervisors can observe them in real time from remote locations and actually provide real-time feedback in the form of an instant message. So I am going to have my colleague Pam Reese here talk a little bit about the goals and objectives of the program, but again, just to reinforce, the student teachers have laptops, webcams, tripods, and the Adobe Connect platform.
Thank you. We call him Scooter all the time, so it's hard for me to break out of that. I'm Pam Reese, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Iowa, and one of my jobs is to place approximately 80 to 90 students a semester out in field experiences. They're out there for half a day. I then supervise the supervisors who go out and do the direct observation. One of the problems I run into is that a supervisor can usually only see about 3, maybe 4 students in one morning or one afternoon, primarily because of distance, or sometimes there's overlaps of when they're going to be teaching. You might have 2 teachers in the same building, but they're teaching at the same time. So I went to these guys and I said, I need some help here. What can we do? Could we use webcams? Could we use the technology to help get around this? One of the other issues we have is cost of sending those supervisors out there. We're at Iowa City, obviously. To send someone out to Cedar Rapids or to Columbus Junction costs roughly $35 to $40 by the time you pay their mileage. So I was looking for ways to look at sustainability, cutting costs, all this kind of thing.
Great. Now Wayne Kintz is going to speak to some of the technology-related aspects of the project.
I was brought in as kind of a consultant looking at what type of hardware we could probably use to incorporate. For the project, we looked at brand model issues, looking at software support issues. We did look at Macintosh. The one thing we looked at also was network activity. That was going to be a great concern for us because we were working K through 12. What type of filters, firewalls, and things like that are they using? And also looking at the video capture method with regard to either live connections or is there a record capability if a live connection isn't working for some reason. We looked at the different types of systems. We do have some special bid pricing. The university works with vendors every year to come up with a vending special models of computers. We get special pricing through. I'm sure other states, including our state, do the same thing. We also wanted to try to keep it as simple as possible. We wanted something that had the capability of recording, be able to better target the camera. We looked at either built-in cameras or looking at a camera that would be external that we can maybe mount on a tripod. And ultimately, that's the decision that we made because of being able to angle the camera better to get a higher perspective. You can't really hold a laptop 5 feet off the floor, but with a tripod, it's quite easy to move that camera. We also looked at warranties. When we bought the bid price on our Dell machines that we did eventually purchase, has 3-year including accidental damage, so if it gets dropped, Dell still fixes it. Because cost is a real concern. Again, we selected Dell E6400s mainly because it was the bid price this year. It was the machine that came down cheapest with the major items that we were looking for. We did upgrade the memory a little bit, and pretty much everything else was left alone. We ordered, obviously, Complete Care, which was part of the bid price. Added a few items. I think the laptop came in just over $1,000 a piece. Again, I guess that's kind of redundant. Sorry. UI has an excellent relationship with Dell. Parts and repair is quite easy. Most of the time with Dell, if we have a hard drive that's going up, we can just send them an email, and I will have that part of my desk user the next day. On-site issues, when we took a look at support, network access, this was the one I was probably the most fearsome of when we decided to do this project, because again, it's out of my control as far as when network access doesn't work. I don't have any control of that. So I know that James has done a great job working with different sites, as well as the site coordinators, figuring out what kind of network access they have, what kind of packet filtering or firewall or whatever they're doing. Will the technology work? The one nice thing about Adobe is they have everything as far as port addresses known and published, so if you say this port is open, it will work with their network infrastructure. We picked Vista machines mainly because we wanted a machine that was fairly robust. We wanted something, we could have gone with Macintosh, I suppose, but the problem with that would be an external webcam would not be as easily obtained. We looked at video capture methods. We had a couple choices here, although we picked Adobe Connect, I think, because of the issue that it just has the features that we want. It has the record from a remote site, so if you have something online, you can actually just pick to have them capture that video, and so have it play back. I think it creates a flash file so that you can have that file to be able to edit or to use for the student later as an artifact in their electronic portfolio. We also can use Camtasia to do screen capture on site. I think James has done some of that as well. We looked at on-site. Unfortunately, in some schools there may be rooms that they're in that there be no network activity, so this technology obviously doesn't really work so well. We looked at, with most webcams, there's some kind of built-in webcam utility. I know Logitech and Microsoft both do a really good job with this, that they have some kind of software that you can actually capture the video directly on the machine, and I'm sure the iPod or the Apple laptop is the same. We need to be able to edit and post these video clips again, so we need to be able to have a simple way to capture the video and then do editing later on. We had to worry about, again, compliance with not only the network security, but looking at school districts individually with regards to their regulations on capturing video. I think a lot of school districts, they already had something that take kids' pictures. We promised to keep things secure, so the agreement was that we were able to do this without a whole lot of red tape.
Can I say one thing about that too, Wayne? We were having to get parent permission slips from every single student that was involved, and I was able to negotiate with the school district, so they put it into the regular sign-off that people do. They just added the phrase of university students, and so now we no longer have to collect 80,000 permission slips.
And that was a tremendous time saver, I think.
Yeah. John Eckerzock is going to speak to some of the human-related aspects of the project, which obviously always end up being quite a bit more important than the technology shows.
Yeah. Well, I'm a faculty member in teaching and learning, and also I'm direct technology at the college, and I heard Pam speaking about this need to be able to go out there and assess our students easier and engage them in their field experience a little bit better using these technologies. I thought this was a dandy idea. Let's try to bring it to reality. The College of Education has a student computing fee fund. Students pay every semester, I think it's like $43, or depending on how many hours you take, what program you're in, computing fees. And once a year we call for proposals for faculty to put forward any innovative projects or ideas or technologies that would impact students themselves. And I thought this was a really good proposal for that. So we emphasized to the Student Fee Committee, which is comprised of faculty and students, that how this will benefit our students. Number one, as Pam mentioned, it will help assess them, engage them, hopefully improve their learning. And number two, and the students really were excited about this, is learning and being trained on and using these advanced video conferencing tools. They see that's something that will probably be there more and more as they get into the professional field of teaching. And the third thing that our faculty and our students were excited about was that at the end, again, we wanted something to track their teaching abilities and put it up on their e-portfolio. That would be a very powerful indication of not, again, just teaching abilities, but of all the technologies that are demonstrated along the way to get to that point. So we proposed, it was about a $20,000 proposal, get laptops, webcams, and all of our video people, everybody asked that you gotta get tripods. Without tripods, it's gonna get jiggly and you won't be able to really see what's going on. Audio was really important to us to be able to hear, because our field supervisors said you can close your eyes and even hear and sense how learning is going into that classroom. So it was important to get something that capture audio really well, and what worked well, believe it or not, was those webcams with the built-in microphone. We tried some very, very high-end microphones, very, very expensive, and for the price, the convenience, setup, ease of use, we went with the webcams with the built-in microphones. I think Logitech and Microsoft have those kind of microphones out there. Other things, tripods, Adobe Connect. We're looking at 3 products. It came down to Skype, Connect, Illuminate. Skype, a couple issues there. We're a little concerned about security. You read through their licensing agreements about intellectual properties and privacy and what's going to happen to videos that are going through Skype. We don't know if it was a safe enough environment. Number 2, Skype does not have easy reporting capabilities. Also, sometimes our faculty wanted maybe 2 or 3 of them to be observing, to comment, discuss these things in small groups, and Skype didn't have that capability of stacking up multiple videos. The reason we went to Adobe Connect, the deciding factor was the recording capability. It records to a flash file that can be copied and pasted easily. Again, trapping significant moments, moments that you want to demonstrate to potential employers, to assessors, or faculty, your ability to manage an effective classroom. And so licensing for Adobe Connect was another thing that we used to sort of demonstrate what we're doing. Here and again, got the student fee committee really excited. And University of Iowa already has a server for this, and I think that was $300 per connection for the entire year. So that worked out really, really well. Training and support. Well, we're lucky where we have somebody like Wayne here, who took us under his wing and tried to do all the high and technical wizardry to make this work. As Wayne mentioned, not only for us at the University of Iowa College of Education, but we're going out to different school districts who have completely different ways of securing things, of firewalls, permissions, and things like that. So we did have the training, the support here, but we wanted eventually for this to be technologically self-sustaining. So we were lucky enough to have James, or it's called Scooter online, or on campus, and online, who was a leadership studies, wants to be involved in school leadership, who was looking for an independent study. 2 or 3 hours for an independent study, and I said, James, I think I got a project for you. So we signed him up, tech savvy, and for a graduate, a doctoral student in educational leadership, to get involved from this high-tech stuff to evaluating teachers, going to all these different schools across the state, introducing the project and working with the leadership, the tech staff, the teachers. I thought it was a win-win situation. Again, hopefully developed, further broadened his education as a future leader, and also provided valuable service to us. A couple of things I wanted James to do out there in the schools. Number 1, introduce the project to the schools themselves. James went out there and not just introduced the project, but sort of wiggled ourselves into their technologists and things like that. So James knows a lot of technologists, a lot of the way schools secure things, and some of the wireless and direct connectivity issues that we had to go through and document for every school. So another project I demanded from James, or required, okay, was to document everything. Every single thing that you did, every piece of wisdom that you got from the schools, every little technical issue, or what kinds of special agreements or things that you had to do to make this work with the schools, document that, put it somewhere. And James developed a nice project site not just for the technologists, but for future students, for future faculty, and for future cooperating teachers and supervisors out there to be able to visit. And again, we want this to be self-sustaining technologically, and it's really starting to work that way. We started this last semester, and it's already starting this semester, and I don't think we've been approached with any technological problems that they have been able to overcome out there in the field. Why don't you go back one more, James? I'm sorry. Let's see, faculty. So, you know, what are all the players that made us work? We got the tech people, we got the grad student out there. The faculty, our faculty sort of orchestrated everything. Told us when training should take place, where these students are going, and also introduced this project to the cooperating teachers and the supervisors out in the field. The students themselves, we trained, I forget how it was, 15, 20 students on how to do this last semester. Again, that's going to grow every semester. But the teacher candidates, the students themselves, they were trained on using these technologies and also being sensitive to some of the issues when it comes to video recording and broadcasting these things over secure networks. Now, this was not a big leap in terms of privacy and security and that, because we had always been videotaping our student teachers and our practicum teachers out in the field. And our faculty and supervisors were well versed in the privacy and the safety issues that go along with those kinds of things. But you throw the internet in there and all kinds of other issues come up. Field supervisors, they were the ones who worked closely with all our students. They were the ones who were there day in and day out, and we wanted them to become hopefully better tech experts. So they, hand in hand, side by side, were trained with the students to do the technology. We're also given extra help in the background by our grad student, by our doctoral student, to be able to do this technology stuff and do some of the troubleshooting out there, and also work with the schools and teachers themselves. Cooperating teachers, it's up there, but we didn't want them to do anything. We didn't want them to be burdened with this project at all. The cooperating teachers who take our field experience people, our teacher candidates and student teaching practicum, they've got their hands full. We didn't want them to really worry about this new webcam coming in the classroom and all that, but they really, really were interested in what we're doing, and they were really wanting to learn these, so we're going to be including probably some of our cooperating teachers into this training, because they just thought of all kinds of neat, creative ideas and ways to implement these kinds of video conferencing strategies in the classrooms. And finally, the students, the kids themselves, and their families. Safety and privacy is the main issue there. How do we be able to track these teaching sessions with video, see them in real time going over the web, but still be sensitive to some of the privacy, again, security and safety issues of keeping these things private? Well, we've got these parent permission forms. We had to translate also in Spanish and in Korean. We got a list of other languages. We translate those in that went home to parents in the classroom, of the kids in the classroom. We let them know exactly what we're doing. This is for assessment of our future teachers. In the end, it will help your kids learn better by better training these teachers, and we assure them that this will be secured, this will not be public, and it will not in any way go out there and become part of somebody's Facebook site or anything like that. So we were very happy with the responses we got from parents. Again, not that much of a leap from videotaping our teachers that we've done in the past. In terms of security also, we were sensitive to those needs, and that's another reason we went with Adobe Connect, because it requires passwords, it requires all kinds of security measures that would just go in there and watch these things live. And the recording was not open to the public. Some of these other technologies, if you do record off the web, it sort of becomes available in some kind of public shared area. And the last thing there is the e-portfolios. Okay, so the faculty are engaging, are assessing live, but we also want students to go back later on and reflect on their learning, discuss good points or bad points, or things where they made some good adjustments, maybe pointing out what the different kids were doing in the classroom, how they should have reacted. But go back and reflect on that recorded session and take a best piece of that will show the potential employer or other faculty their potential as teachers. Right, so again, it was a big project, but working with the quality people I had to work with me, from Scooter to Wayne and our faculty, it really came out well. So future plans, as Pam will go on here in a minute, is to expand this. And we've had interest from other disciplines on campus, from medicine to nursing, where they have to also monitor professionals out in the field performing and then assessing and reflecting upon their practices as professionals.
Thanks, John. Okay, I'm going to show you, obviously this is a video and web-based project, and to really pay that, pay tribute to that, I'm going to show you now just a few video clips that will give a little context. The first is the training of the student teachers and the faculty members who are going to be working with this technology. As John mentioned, we used the distance education platform that the university already had in place, so it wasn't a leap for many people, particularly those who have taken distance education classes or taught them. But for many people, this was very new. So one of the key issues that we had to confront was we have to train people, make them comfortable, and also give them the resources, both human and online, to make this really feasible. So here is a, you're going to see me in all this, but it's not just because it's me.
Your important piece.
Here is a...
I am purposely, I am not going to include my video because, as you can see here, any participant who's online has their own little box. And I want you all to be able to see as much of yourselves and your classrooms as possible, which is why you can participate on...
So clearly that's just a session of training the student teachers on how to use Adobe Connect, how to use the laptops and webcams. Just giving you a couple quick ones. Yes?
Was that over the ICN?
That
I
was...
saw ICN mic.
Yes.
That was interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Same classroom. Yep. We've got webcams also on the ceilings that go directly to the building. Yeah. Very good.
One of the other things that I did was I worked with the students on site so that when they would set up in the morning to conduct their lessons, I would help them make sure that they had the system working, that the microphone and video were placed correctly, and just to kind of help them wake up and talk to somebody as they were getting going at 7:30 in the morning. So here's just a quick snippet of just me offering. I'm in my basement in Cedar Rapids, and this student teacher you're about to see is in Kelowna or Oxford. These are actually two video windows.
Emily, can you adjust the settings?
So I'm there on the left, and there's a student in a different location on the right. So as you can see, we have full audio, video, and text instant messaging based options to communicate. So it's very, as far as a virtual experience goes, it can be fairly intimate. It's one-on-one. This year, we are changing the process so that the student teachers have a little bit more autonomy. Last year, when we started, I'd say did a lot more hand-holding and kind of hands-on support. Our goal for ongoing is to make the student teachers as self-sufficient as possible so that they can log in themselves, start the recordings themselves. We haven't given them back-end access to the system so they can actually access the recordings. I go in and send them the links to their recordings. But other than that, we're trying to make them as self-sufficient as possible with us being available kind of as needed. So after the semester went, we got a few students as well as participating faculty members just to give us some thoughts. And as John mentioned, we really documented everything. And one of the things that we're not showing you is we have a support website that really gives step-by-step instructions, video-based tutorials on how to do everything from log into the system to make the recordings. Really, for a student teacher, if they were comfortable with technology, I feel that the site would be pretty sufficient for them to really go from point A to point B with it. We also have scheduling sites. For instance, we have 3 virtual classrooms available. So theoretically, we could have too much demand for the available resources. So we have an online spreadsheet that through an application called EditGrid, where the student teachers are responsible for scheduling classrooms and making sure that there is no overlap of virtual classroom used. So we have a number of online resources that are available not only to help schedule and manage, but to provide instructional support and kind of ongoing feedback. So some of the student teachers, I'm just going to show you briefly just a couple of their perspectives. And this is this was reported after a semester of experience on the project, where the teachers were out reporting their lessons.
When I was watching the video, there were kids laying on their desks like this, and I had no idea that that was happening. And to like bring that to my attention, that kids don't sit in their chairs and they move around and they fall off their chairs, that was like good to watch.
It's also interesting to hear the back conversations.
Yeah.
And I would continue to be like, what did she say? Or, I don't get it. Do you get it? And then after that, I knew what I needed to be clear.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times I wouldn't realize there's kids in the back talking, but the camera's on. Oh, okay. I can't hear that where I am, but the camera's on.
Yeah, sometimes there's just those things that you're doing, you're sort of aware of it, but you're not really aware of what you're doing until you watch it.
If you make yourself watch it like right away after, I think it's helpful. There's one video I watched that day, right after I taught it. I never watched it like a week later because I got busy with other things. And that one, not really as helpful when you watch it a long time after, but if you watch it right after, it's a lot more helpful.
Okay, so what you're getting there obviously is some reflection on a few things. First, some of the student teachers noticed things that their students were doing in classrooms that they felt otherwise unable to detect. So things from students kind of lying down on the desk, having side chatter. Also, student teachers noticed their own habits, so maybe things like saying or wringing their hands or pacing around. So you really get, as the old saying goes, you know, the tape don't lie. So from a feedback perspective, both in terms of self-reflection and also in terms of being able to assess what's going on in students' classrooms, you have maybe a degree of objectivity in the video that you don't have sort of by creating your own schemas or by having a conversation with somebody who's providing an evaluation based on their perception of what happened. So we're going to get a little bit more into some of the implications that we see with this program. But again, one of the things that I happen to love about video is that you see things maybe in some cases more objectively than they might feel or seem in your head. But we're going to go on, and this woman who's not here, who I wish was here, is a woman named Mary. She's one of the faculty supervisors who was very instrumental in this project going. And she's going to interrupt.
Hey, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your general perceptions of the experience trying a remote observation project out in the school systems, and specifically as a supervisor. Just any thoughts you might have on what you think of the program.
I tend to enjoy technology, so I was excited to participate. And when we first started, I still went to the classroom and I was in the room where the students were recording just in case things didn't work too well. And as it progressed, the semester went on, I stayed first in another room and then I stayed at home finally and typed comments as the lesson proceeded. So I was also on the learning curve trying out ideas. I felt like my students did a lot of self-correction of small things. Language habits like and those kinds of things disappeared pretty easily for these students. Their pace, usually at the beginning of the semester, students talk too quickly, they don't pause long enough for their children to think about things, and their pace developed into a good classroom pace pretty naturally. I didn't have to say much about that with these students.
Okay. Now, obviously there was some perspective from one of the faculty members reflecting on her observations of progress that her student teachers made because of having the video sessions. Mary was great. Again, I wish she was here. As Pam mentioned, and if you want to come speak on this, that'd be great, but some of the benefits that we found are obviously logistics, associated travel costs, fuel, time associated with faculty members having to drive throughout the state to visit their students on placements. As we all know, particularly those of us who are K-12 teachers tend to like their own space, and they don't necessarily want people walking in their classrooms looking at what they're doing or evaluating them at all. And everybody, we all know that the teachers who have the little thin pane of glass, they always put a poster up over it so that nobody can see it from the outside. So we thought that this might be a way that teachers could conceivably feel a little bit more comfortable in their environments without having another person kind of lurking in their space.
And along with that, whenever another person enters a room, it disrupts the flow of the classroom. It gives it different dynamics. And this helped to address that issue.
Yes. Again, we mentioned that we were trying to make the student teachers more and more autonomous so that less technical support would be needed. One thing that we haven't done yet, which we would love to do, is have the faculty and the student teachers themselves kind of data mine the videos and be able to really see their progress from the first recorded lesson of the year to the last, and maybe be able to kind of cull through the video and identify best practices that could serve for Pam's classes, for instance, that are taught. Maybe student teachers could view past student teachers' examples of a way that they handled the classroom situation well, that kind of thing. So obviously once you have recorded material, it doesn't do any good if it just sits on a hard drive somewhere. It's got to be used, and that can be daunting when you have hours and hours of video, but certainly once you have the material, kind of, the onus is on the holder of that video to do something useful with it. So we're hoping to do a little bit more with what we have so far.
One other thing I would add there, Mary was alluding to the fact that the students self-corrected a lot of the little things, and what that allowed them to do then was dig deeper in their conferences into the actual teaching, the pedagogy of teaching. And they felt like they were able to get there much more because you didn't have to deal with all that other new stuff.
That was because the students had to watch their videos.
Right.
And they weren't ever using video before.
We did use video before, but because of the cumbersomeness of it, they usually only made one small group recording, and this time they were recording sometimes 2 and 3 a week.
Okay.
So it moved them through that process a lot more quickly.
So we just touched a little bit on the privacy implications without having somebody physically in your room. One other issue that obviously when you have recorded material, there are potential retention issues. I know, for instance, I don't remember anything from when I was a student in 6th grade social studies, but I bet that if I had videos of me being in that class or even videos of my teaching as a student teacher, there's a good chance maybe I'd remember that, or there'd be some cognitive processes that would have turned out differently for me. Now, from a feedback perspective also, we all know that, we all have egos and we can be sensitive, and sometimes people take feedback in different ways. When you have video to back up what's being discussed, that could potentially be a way to thwart some emotional swellings that might come up when people might not agree about a conversation. So it's sort of, the instant replay effect might come in handy. John mentioned the e-portfolio, which is a big project that the university has. We imagine that from a hiring standpoint, that principals and other people in hiring positions might find this project useful to actually see student teachers in action. Obviously, people can obviously make resumes look good and read well, but to actually see somebody in a classroom situation teaching might be of use to people in hiring situations. One thing that we never thought about until we saw the student teacher's perspective when she was talking about the students lying on the desk or whatever are there implications for classroom discipline? I know that if I was a student when these classes being videotaped, I'd probably be a little bit less likely to monkey around in class. So now maybe, and that brings up a whole bunch of other issues, some of which people might say, that's not natural, and there might be some negative attached to that too, but from a classroom management perspective, the eye in the sky could potentially be useful there. Taking this observation system past student teachers or any teachers and conceivably evaluating principals or other administrators.
Or principals using it to look in on the classrooms.
Right. I mean, clearly this setup could be used for educators at all different levels and people outside of education as well. So as John mentioned, we've had people in other academic disciplines at the university approach us who are interested in this kind of technology. So, and again, I just want to say that John, speaking to the human aspects, it's very easy to get lost in the technology, and the technology is always going to change, the applications and the hardware, but really, we had a great team in place right from the get-go, and all the schools that we worked with, we had principal buy-in, we had the tech coordinators in schools willing to work with us, and that just goes so much further than any bit of software hardware can go. And that's really the difference. I mean, this project has run smoothly, really because of the human factors, and that's the key is making sure that you're working with people who are on board and interested in doing this kind of thing. So I just want to thank everyone who's here, and there's other people that have been great for that as well. So at this point, we want to open it up, see if there are any other questions or comments. Yeah.
Did you ever seriously consider using Polycon? Because I believe every district in the state has a Polycon.
We did, but the one implication there would be that we would have to move every class to the room that the Polycon was located in.
They're not portable units?
No, I think most of them are statically installed.
I actually don't know.
I don't know about all of them, but I know that the couple that I was dealing with, they really didn't talk as if it would be easy to get it in their classroom.
But that's a great question, and I mean, again, once you actually get into the technology, I mean, there's a million open source applications like DimDim and WizIQ, and millions of audio, video, Skype, for instance. But again, all of those different applications, and not that Adobe Connect is perfect by any means, but every application has sort of its pros and cons. And for us, it just happened that Connect worked out. But again, if we didn't already have it for the university and needed to kind of buy something, and cost was a huge concern, Adobe, while they make a lot of excellent products, is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. So if you were on a shoestring budget and you weren't as concerned about security, there are a million free video conferencing applications that could be used that would be perfectly adequate for the project.
Well, that's what I wonder, because I know that some of the Polycom stuff that people have done, you and I have been using the tracking cameras and really, really good quality audio and video, of course, but and overall that cost of Adobe Connect plus the laptop and all that. So that's why I wondered if you ever.
Well, we have to get a Polycom for a faculty member's office. We do have Polycoms on carts in college, but I don't think it would offer you the flexibility of doing something in your office or at home. All you need is a $50 webcam.
But
I just wanted to ask, you seem well happy with the audio quality. I can't believe that audio quality was good enough to hear those side conversations, and you didn't have to worry about proximity much in terms of where to position those webcams.
We tried a couple different webcams. We actually, again, tried some more expensive. We had some omnidirectional microphones. IETS loaned them some of theirs. And we actually found the Microsoft VSX 5000 actually picked things up just about as well as the $600
I was shocked by that as well. I mean,
I wouldn't have believed that personally. I would have thought that was not the case, but we actually found in most classroom situations it picked up the audio pretty well.
So the student goes in, they set up the laptop, they put that webcam on a tripod, and that's the extent of the equipment, right?
Yeah, yep, and that's it. And again, it's a pretty quick and easy setup. And as Wayne said, I mean, we were shocked to find out that basically a $30 webcam was better than, in some cases, very expensive microphones, and it was just kind of weird. And obviously, the good news there is that the quality will continue to hopefully get better. But it was more than sufficient.
And were you able to do good assessment of the quality of the audio on that?
Definitely. And that was what I was most concerned about, because that's one of the issues we've had with the videotapes that they've tried to do in the past. Now, for my class, they're doing small groups, but small groups sometimes are up to 10 or 15 kids. And I was amazed at how well I could hear them.
The other issue too is when you did the live feed, it wasn't as good video quality as if you did the standalone. When you did the standalone, it was great, but of course, when you're streaming something, it's going to reduce the quality of video. It's just the nature of these, especially right now. And we thought that as a concern, but in some ways it's not, because a lot of these school districts don't have the biggest height coming out of their networks. Sure, you could have high definition video, but is it going to feed over their network? That's who knows?
So, did you have a question?
Yeah, when I saw the video of the Connect Pro, I saw some other pods. Did you utilize any other pods other than the video conference?
Great question. What we did is obviously the audio video pod was kind of the cornerstone, but we used the instant messaging function partly for support. So I would use it if the student needed help, but we ended up more and more having the faculty supervisors who were remote. We encouraged them to take their teaching notes using that so that the students could actually see the textual feedback in real time with their lesson. And that's something that we're encouraging as much as possible, which is a sticking point for some people who like to take handwritten notes. And Mary, we saw interviewed, initially had a bit of concern about that because she takes a lot of shorthand. She said, how am I going to translate that? But she ended up typing her thoughts and feedback in real time, which I think is a huge value to the students, to see exactly when the issue came up and feedback came up. But the other thing is there's a note area where I typically, I populated that with sort of the initial login procedure. So, make sure your mic's turned on, don't forget to record the meeting. If you have questions, here's my cell phone number.
Yeah.
So we use that.
Use the file share pod. I like it.
We didn't use the file share pod only because really it was never about, the student teachers never used the computers as part of their lessons. It was always used as nothing but a recording device.
Well, it could have been to the cooperating teacher or the supervising teacher. Let's say there was a lesson plan for that, or an accompanying, she's handing out a sheet in class.
That certainly could have been used. It wasn't. But I mean, that would be a great, thing to do. Scott?
So the primary use of this is not synchronous, right? People are watching these videos later.
No.
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no.
To capture a problem.
Because if you were watching live, then the chat feature or the feature that I was talking about, where people were coming in and live blogging, so it's anchored to the moment in the video.
Yeah.
Exactly what occurs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in some cases, the faculty supervisors log in from remote live, and obviously the convenience there was that they didn't have to be at the physical location. In some cases, they access the recordings later because they couldn't be there for the live session. So that was kind of the dual purpose of the recording for them.
Well, and the other thing that I could see happening is if I have a student who's having difficulty, for me and the supervisor to both go in there would be pretty intimidating and definitely change the dynamics of what was happening. But if I could be in my office, which we did experiment with this a little bit, I was sitting in my office, I was able to watch it all the time, and they were also recording it so that I could go back to it later.
Right. I guess what I was saying is that if you and the supervisor were both in there watching while the lesson is being done, in the chat space or whatever, you could type your comments at the appropriate moment,
Right.
which means that the student teacher can play it back and see your
That's the
commentary
idea.
at the right moment and say,
And
bam,
we did do that.
right there, right?
Right.
That's exactly the idea. That's why we
see these comments for it.
Yeah, that's why we encourage that.
I'm curious about that real-time feedback, though. You said that the cooperative teacher could give real-time feedback. Do you have any sense how often or how well the students actually use that? Were they even able to see that? Because it seems like the laptop would be across the room.
They don't see it while they're teaching. They don't see it until they go back and video. And one of the things
can't talk. Yell.
One of the other things that was a huge issue for us, which we really reinforced, was that we never wanted the technology to be a distraction. We always said to the student teachers, make sure that the integrity of your lessons comes first. And if the machine blows up, go on with your lesson. That obviously was first and foremost. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes because obviously you have a tendency to look over, and so we wanted to make sure that it didn't end up being more of a distraction than anything else.
Yeah, I just want to say something.
Well, the other thing is the students that were doing it on a regular basis had that laptop computer sitting like on a kidney-shaped table, and it just became part of it, and the kids got to the point they didn't even pay attention to it. So then they were able to look at it, but no, I didn't expect the student, these are beginning teachers.
Yeah, that's right.
So I didn't expect them to be reading my comments at the same time they were trying to teach a lesson, that kind of thing.
Yes, Scott?
So, quick question about the permission slips. So, you don't have to have permission slips to have student teachers in the room. Is the reason you had student permission slips because they were asking to archive and things in archive? Yes. So it became
Whenever we're recording, especially in Iowa City, they're very sensitive about it.
Okay, just curious. Because like I said, you don't need parent permission to have a person in there.
No.
Like, so if you were just observing from a distance, that would be the same thing.
But whenever there's the perception that we're capturing those images that we're going out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very good. Any other questions? Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Get on the bad list.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, if you want to give us your emails, we can send you information. We can send you the project sites so that you can see more detail about everything.